Right, so we're live. So, welcome. Put this in the middle, folks. Welcome back. This is the WP-Tonic special at WordCampUSA 2022. We all managed to get here. I've got my guest Dan here. Would you like to introduce yourself to the tribe?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. So I'm Daniel Schutzsmith. I work full-time for Pinellas County government in Pinellas County, Florida. Most people don't know that. It's on my profile. So I'm in charge of all our websites there. But I'm also one of the organizers for WordCampUSA. So I'm on the photography team there. So you'll see me shooting kind of all weekend, doing different shots of the speakers. And I also run the WordPress Twitter community. So there's a little Twitter community we have in there. Not official, but just, something that was put together. And then most people just know me from Twitter. So.
Do you also run a small agency that supports?
And I have Awesome Cause. Yeah, it's on the side with my wife. Yep.
Yeah.
And we do. We basically work with nonprofits. We keep the client list really low because it's really just maintenance of websites and handling them. So for us, it's like a nice extra income basically to do that thing. And the way we put it together is we made it so it's pretty much automated. Don't tell all the clients, but that's how it's pretty much done. So everything's kind of runs on its own, and we just check things to make sure things are running efficiently through that.
So when was the last WordCamp you went to, Daniel?
Well, I was an organizer for 2020, WordCampUSA 2020. Then that got canceled, so that was going to be the online one. Before that, I was an organizer for WordCamp Miami for 2020. And that's the one that ran. I think it was the last one we had before the pandemic really started. And we
always wanted to go to that one, actually.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Because it's always got a good reputation, being well run. And
there's such an infrastructure, too, for WordCamp Miami that's there. The organizers, many of them have been on for years. So they have their general processes that work really well. But they also like bringing new people into the fold. And so I think I had moved to Miami I had moved to Florida about 6 months before WordCamp Miami, and they needed some help with specifically social and photography, so I just stepped up and helped them there as well.
So Dan, what's your WordPress story? How did you get into WordPress?
Oh boy.
What led you getting involved
in
it?
I'm kind of a Swiss Army knife in the fact that I started out doing web development. So I started on Perl back in like 97.
I'll forgive you.
Way back. And then moved to PHP. One of my more kind of interesting things was I started doing a site for graphic designers to learn about business around like 2005, 2004, somewhere around there. The dates are fuzzy. Around there.
It all merges. It all merges.
And that was on Drupal. And it was Drupal 4, I think, at the time. I'm pretty sure it was like 4.6, something like that. And I just no distance to Drupal, but I couldn't stand it.
Yeah, so. I was going to say, did you get over the experience, or that was the end of your web?
No, that was for me. It was I think I stumbled onto WordPress because I probably saw it on a forum or something like that at the time that someone was mentioning it, and then I remember spinning up my first site, and basically I just did it as my portfolio site back then. It was about 2005, 2006. And for me, that was it. Like, I was like, this is awesome. Like, I already liked PHP. And then the minute I knew I could kind of like take it to the next level and do stuff with it, that's where I was really kind of hooked on that.
All right. And the photography side, has that been a passion of yours for a while?
You know what it is? So I ran a conference in the Hudson Valley. I'm from Hudson Valley, New York, up in the Hudson River. And I ran a conference there called Catskills Conf. And we had basically got people who were into tech from New York City to come up to the boonies, the middle of nowhere for a weekend, and just talk about tech, but talk about things that people weren't talking about at that time. So this was about 2016, and we were doing things that were focused on like equality and equity inside of tech and how we would do that, accessibility. We did a lot of things about emotional intelligence in technology and how you would do how you'd work with those things. And we also brought up folks that were from underrepresented communities from New York City that wanted to do more in tech. And so they'd come up, and this was like a whole sleepaway camp and everything. It was pretty wild. It was a lot of fun. But I was one of the organizers. There's 3 of us, and I knew that my passion would be giving back something more creatively. So for me, it was the photography. For me, it was to like just do it, take pictures, use that talent basically to kind of give back. And so since then, that's basically what I've done. So I don't do photography at all for money. I only use it for things like this, where where I can kind of give back and help.
And I just want to point out to the tribe, the audience, that we're doing this live in the lobby of the hotel. So if there's a bit of background noise, you just have to put it up with it, folks. You can't have live. I'm grabbing these people. I pre-arranged it, and I've kind of scared them by saying, "Can we do a quick recording?" And Daniel's been up for it, and I appreciate it, Dan. Any particular highlights of the speaker list that you're looking forward to?
Oh boy!
Or are you going to be diplomatic and say they're all great?
Well, my side is I'm not. I am looking forward to the talks, but I'm not going to be listening as much because I'm shooting. Yeah. So
I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here interviewing people.
For me, it was more about going to specific ones and making sure I get the right shots.
Yeah,
the right photos, things like that. There are a few different ones, like especially the ones that are around block editing. Rich Tabor has one that I was looking at. Those ones I want to sit down and watch, but I'm going to do it later. I'm not going to be able to do it during the event. So.
Well, that's very diplomatic of you. I do. So where do you think WordPress is going? You know, we've gone through the COVID, we've got the Gutenberg, the goats. It looks like there's some light on the end of the tunnel, as I say, with Gutenberg. I've been horrible about it, haven't I? You watch my podcast, don't you?
Along with Naisha, I've been a long time listener, so in commenter, you probably see my name come up a bit on there on the live feed.
It's only a laugh, really.
I mean, the thing is too. I mean, some of it is deserved criticism. It's taken a long time to get here, but part of it too is that we know it's kind of a moving target as things are changing and more things are happening. Hey, come over here.
No, they're gonna run away.
As things are changing, we're seeing those things get closer. That makes sense. For me, the hardest thing for me right now is full site editing and seeing how that fits into the landscape of tools. But as far as like the Gutenberg block editor and all that stuff, I'm all in on that.
Yeah, really... I'm kind of edging there. I'm just waiting for Spectre from Astra because
I played around with that. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I'm looking forward to their pro version because we provide hosting and a solution for those in the learning management and Buddy Boss.
Yeah.
So I'm looking to replace Elementor at some stage with Gutenberg, and I think Spectre might be that solution. Because it comes from a good team.
Yep.
So I'm all for it. That's one of my problems because I just want to get it all.
Play with it now. Yeah. I'm working on a side project right now and using Spectre, and it works really well. For me, the main things that are missing from Gutenberg that's been a hurdle is really the responsiveness. So dealing with we want to be able to change margin and padding based on the size of what we're working with, like we would in Elementor or anything else.
Yeah.
So that's been a hurdle. And then the other thing for me is really just being able to just have more capabilities like you'd normally see in Elementor or Webflow or anything like that, where we're able to control the styles a little bit more without having to go to the code editor. I'm a developer by nature, so I love coding. I love doing that. But the problem is, the stakeholders I work with, they're not going to go into the code and do it, but I need them to sometimes. I need them to be able to change it and say oh yes, these are the things we want to do. So the workaround for us has been, especially at Pinellas County government, is making things styles. So we have different styles basically they can choose and different things, and that decides whether something's going to be a large, giant, big type of text. That's not a heading, but we want big text type of scenario.
So where do you think the WordPress, a big question, where do you think the WordPress community is at the present moment? I just sense that even though nothing might on the surface happen at this WordCamp, I just sense it's a very important WordCamp. We've had a break for a couple of years. We've got the Gutenberg project does seem now to be getting somewhere, but obviously I just sense there's a little bit of apprehension. There's not quite, people are just, there seems to be an increase in competition from the SaaS-based solutions. Where do you think WordPress is at the present moment? And do you think its glory years are behind it, or are they to come?
No, I was talking with people last night about this. For me, I think I'm most excited about where WordPress is now for community and for kind of the enterprise solutions, like what's going on at that level, because of what I saw with Flash back in the day. So I used to do a bunch of Flash
No, I did.
development.
That's how I got into it. I was
Yeah.
running. I was an action
Action script, yeah. Yep.
coder.
Yep, same. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, I saw the same thing happening back then around like the 2006, 2008, like in that period. And then Apple said, we're not going to have Flash at all in that kill. But anyways, but it's that I really compare it to that time. Of like, yeah, well, what we saw was that you had different folks coming out with different projects. We had agencies being consumed by larger agencies and getting folded into advertising and stuff. And that was my background then. But from 2000 to 2010, I was basically working in the ad world in New York City, working on sites for like Dave Matthews Band, They Might Be Giants, like larger, like
bring
media
back the
brands
good
and
old
stuff.
days.
I know. But I see that coming with WordPress. Like, yeah, we see a lot of consolidation happening in acquisitions, but I don't know that it's a bad thing because we're basically just seeing these things move to places where they can kind of stay forever, or if they're not, they're going to be consumed by something else. And so I think we're going to see that kind of over and over and over again. What I'm hoping, though, is that as we kind of do this whole full site editing thing and we get the block editor to have more things like the responsiveness, that we have like a whole system from like design to build, basically, that people can follow. Because right now it's a little disjointed.
Yeah, I think you focused really well on one of the key factors.
Yeah.
That if it could get sorted out would be superb, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Because it is a little bit disjointed at the present moment, to say the least. But I think, it's all right for me to criticise it, but I did put in one of the posts I recently wrote that Gutenberg, one of the things that I think on looking back, and I know compatibility has been a kind of the core principle of WordPress because it caused one of the factors of decline when it comes to Drupal and Joomla, that it should always be compatible. But I think you've got to keep a balance. You want to keep compatibility as much as possible, but there is a time where you're going to say this is such a change that it's got to be WordPress 2.0.
Yeah.
And on reflection back, I think that Gutenberg was a time where you give like a roadmap for the old version. We're going to still support it for 5 years.
Yeah.
But this is a new start because it's like trying to repair engine as it's still running.
Yeah.
What do you think about that statement?
I think Spencer, who I was yelling to before because he walked behind us, I think Spencer mentioned it a few times on WP-Tonic of like, it's like you're building the airplane while you're flying it. And so, I mean, I think everyone's felt that way, even the folks that are working on core that are right in the middle of it. Unfortunately, that's where we're at. So
yeah,
it's like we can only make the best of it. I was a bit negative at first when Gutenberg came on the block, back in like 2018 or so. But for me, it's just that potential. Like there's so much.
Well, definitely something needed to be done. It wasn't the experience wasn't good enough, was it? Good, but it offers such possibilities, doesn't it? That I just want it to be moving well.
Yeah.
And just to finish off, where do you think some of the other area seems to be the internationalization of WordPress? It was a very focused North American for obvious reasons, but I went over to Porto, WordCamp Europe, and I went there and also went to see my family in the UK that because of COVID I hadn't seen for 3 years. And what struck me about Porto was not only all the people from different European countries, but all the people from all over the world that had gone to Porto because they had almost 2,500 attendees.
Yeah.
So I think that is the most surprising and dynamic thing about the WordPress is the internationalization of it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. The WordCamp Kathmandu was just this past weekend, and I was taking a look at some of the presentations, what was going on. I mean, there's a ton of people there. It's their 10th anniversary of doing it in WordCamp Kathmandu. And just to see
There's a few people in the WordPress community who would like to send me to Kathmandu.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'd like to go to that one.
Yeah.
That was my immediate thinking too. But it was interesting to see just an entire group across the world getting together and going through the same things that we're doing here this weekend. And I think 3 years ago, before the pandemic, I think we took that for granted. We had these WordCamps all around the world. Like, they weren't as big of a deal. But I think now, it's really important for us to do that. It's important for us to be in person and actually, have those time, those moments to have that time to sit down with people, like we're doing right now, and actually meet face to face. But the other big thing to me too is that these WordCamps really give kind of a sense of community where we don't have that in other open source projects. You don't have these like React camps, things like that. You have React conferences that are just giant sponsored things, with tons of money thrown in them. That just aren't really about so much as community, but more about how to do a technical thing.
It's kind of mixing the two together. I think WordCamps do have to change. Everything has to change or die, doesn't it? And I think WordCamps do need to change a bit. But on the other hand, I totally agree with you. I don't want them just to end up as trade shows, just glorified trade shows as well. Because you've been to one, you've been to them all, haven't you? But I do think it needs to morph a little bit, also be more exclusive. There was a tendency, a lot of WordCamps, to have the same speaker list.
Sure, yeah.
They tend to go to all of them. I think the trade show bit is important. I think finding a mixture, having especially WordCamp US, I think it needs to have a professional element, maybe one day, and then community day session and that. But I do agree with you. I wouldn't want it just to turn into a glorified trade show either, because that would be a bit boring, wouldn't it? We don't want that, do we?
Well, and to me too, I mean, the other thing is just the getting, like you said, we have some of the same speakers at different WordCamps, and that's something WordCamp Asia was just putting out the call for too, is to kind of increase their diversity.
So, what's your position on speakers should be paid? That was in the Master WP, because I'm for that, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think if this was any other type of conference, then usually you get an honorarium. I've done a lot of speaking like that, and we usually get some type of stipend to actually do the speaking. I think because it's community driven, perhaps that's why it's not built into it already. I don't know, but I would totally,
because it does restrict. I'm not going to overplay it. You can overplay it, but I think some people, junior people, it does restrict their ability to put in presentation and.
Sure. There's also there's an effort by Winstina Hughes called supportinclusionintech.com. So it's helping her a little bit with that. And basically the premise is that trying to get folks who are from underrepresented groups to get to these events. So even outside of getting paid the speaker fee, she's trying to match up basically like companies that are willing to sponsor folks with travel and hotel to actually get to these events, even if they're WordCamps like across their own country or something like that. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that kind of grows and hopefully flourishes and has more people signing up.
Yeah, just to finish off, I'm really looking forward to this conference. I really enjoyed Porto. Obviously, Porto was Portugal, northern Portugal. What could go wrong? I actually thought it was a smashing city, but it was a fantastic event. I know that for understandable reasons, this is going to be a bit smaller because the organisers went on the cautious side, which I can understand in some ways. Let's hope next year we can get it'll be a really mega event.
Yep.
Right. Yep. We're going to wrap it up now, folks. Got to have a chat with Danielle, and we'll see you in about an hour's time for another chat. See you soon, folks.